the link into the chat. So check it out. Last week, so big post-recovery milestones. Are you ready? My big recovery milestone was I actually taught all 6 of my sections last week, which felt like that was a really big thing. It was not easy, but it felt like a big thing. And I think it was a big thing for me at the time anyway. But so that was my big success of the week. But then I wound up trying another med for nerve pain, and it just whacked my cognition like badly. Hey Devin, you're here, right? Would you mind taking that link and dropping it into the schedule? Would you got a minute to do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I can do
Thank
that.
you so much. Anyway, this thing just kind of like totally whacked out my brain. Just sleeping became really easy, and then everything else became very hard. So by the weekend, I was like, enough of this, don't take it, detox out, and I think I'm okay. But I'm here anyway, and I'm feeling, I'm still in pain, still got the nerve pain. But what are you gonna do? It's just part of, what I mean? It's just healing at this point. So that's my update on my dumb surgery crap. So, any questions about any of that? I'm kind of an open book. I don't mind if you have like actual questions on any of that stuff. It's just been, but 4 weeks this Wednesday, it's been 4 weeks since the surgery, and I would be just cooking with gas right now if it weren't for whatever the nerve damage was that happened in the surgery that led me to have this sort of crippled right side. You know what I mean? That's a slower heal and a complication. So that if it weren't for that, I'd have been pounding it, 2 weeks ago. But I think I'm turning a corner. I think I'm coming around. So that's my quick share. Um, do we have do you guys have are there any questions kind of lingering about I haven't checked like any of where we're at uh, with the Skater Chick book design patterns head first. I haven't double checked any of that just again because I've been fighting the stupid problems, and I'm planning to try to look at that today and maybe try to catch up on some of the early little small project stuff. And again, on all that stuff, while I've been dorking around, trying to get better, I'm being super flex on deadlines. And so if there's anything you haven't gotten to on the small projects, just do it, get it done. And with the golf stuff, uh, and so Devin, we're keeping up, right? The golf 6 that's ahead of us still, right? Okay. Yeah. So with the golf stuff, that's
No,
like
Goth 6 was just they just did.
okay, just
And
did okay.
so
So
we'll publish Goth 7 today.
okay, all right. So we're still trying to stay ahead in the
And,
middle of
and and we are staying ahead. We're just staying ahead at least 1 week.
yeah, and just a
Um,
reminder that everything we're doing on Canvas with the golf stuff is like it's new. It's not like we just have to throw a switch. It's all like new stuff that Tim and Devin are working on and making happen. So it is a little bit slower. And I've been just such non a non-contributor, really to this team. So I'm the weak link on everything. But anyway, relative to the golf assignments, just remember that those are deadlines are real on those. We know what they are. That's something you can plan on. Those deadlines are real. All the other crap that's more dependent on me and my sort of floating dumbness is all floating along with it, and that's kind of in the spirit of my desire to be as fair as I can possibly be, especially if there's stuff that's struggling because of me. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I want to not hold you to a higher standard than I'm holding myself. I think that's a correct professorial principle, I think. So anyway, um, that's pretty much. Is there anything else that you guys have that are like that's like noodling around? Any other like cool experiences with shiny objects and squeaking doors as you've
I have
been?
a
Any shares you want to make?
a question.
Yeah, Devin.
So today is it's scheduled as the midterm review. Is that still the same, or do you want me to just?
Midterm. Well, no.
Okay, I'll just put lecture there.
I have no idea. I got it. So no on the midterm review. Thanks, Devin. Like I said, I haven't looked at. It's been days since I've looked at the schedule stuff, and again, I'm just, I'm sorry, and that I'm doing everything I can do within the physical capacity, and I'm coming around, and I'm rounding the corner. So anyway, yeah, but so I got to look at it and see. We may be able to do that like next week. Maybe do midterm week. And when is spring break?
Next week is spring break.
Yeah,
Next week
next
is
week.
spring break?
Yeah, it surprised me too. I just looked it up this morning.
Okay. Well, I like it though. I like that a lot. Um,
It can give you time to recover.
I know, right? That was kind of my original idea was get me through, you know, get me through to like spring break and then I pick up another week of being ahead. Um,
Do you have a class after this class?
no.
Do you mind if I talk to you about some honor stuff then?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. That'd be great, Braden. And
I have an
again,
idea.
what's that?
I just have some ideas.
Sure, yeah. Well, and again, generic, broad, and broadly distributed, sincere, generic apologies to everybody for that general lack of availability. I know you understand. I just want to like say it again. You know what I mean? So I do feel bad about all of that. You know what? I don't think I put. No, I do have it. Wait. Yeah, it is next week, 8th to 10th. There it is. That's so good. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's a question. Here's a question. You okay doing the exam like first week that we get back from spring break? Doing a midterm? Because I mean, we can power through. I mean, literally, look, we're a small class for starters, right? And I'm a chillaxed guy for seconds. Um, yeah, Braden just mentioned the debilitating health issues with you and your significant other. Ooh, yeah. So thanks for the understanding. It just happened, and this is going to get better as the semester goes on. I trust. But yeah, so we really have two ways we can do it. We could like jump on some review like now-ish and try to do midterm. You know what I mean? Like end of the week, or we could get the midterm ready and do review on Wednesday, and then just give you kind of like the rest of the week to do it. Then you'd have it done before spring break. I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with you know just let's get back, and then as soon as we get back, I would do kind of like a review section on Monday, and then I would give you like a day off for the midterm, just since you're gonna have to burn the time. Ordinarily, we might do it in class kind of thing, but you're gonna do it online on Canvas, you know. So you guys want to vote? Yeah, give it a vote. Thumbs up or thumbs down. The premise is, do we do it after spring break? And that's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you'd rather get it out of the way, then you would give that a thumbs down. If you're cool waiting till after spring break, you give it a thumbs up. And I'm really fine either way. Probably easier for me after spring break, frankly. But either way, it's okay. Okay, votes are going overwhelmingly in favor of after spring break because after spring break is in the mythical future where all things are possible. That's huge, right? The future is when all things happen. So I'm on board, right? I'm right with you on all that. Okay, let me dive in. I got some slides. I got some stuff. By the way, are there any shares? Are there any shares about? Do you guys have any shares about shiny objects or squeaking doors, or just sort of the things we've talked about so far? You know, the design things and what have you, all that stuff. The curse of knowledge. You know, the empathy as a key to design. Any of these principles that we've been talking about broadly about design. Just curious, yeah, is there any shares that anyone wants to make? And I'm okay if not, but I want to give you a minute to jump on it if you have a moment, if you like.
I just really got this super thing just popped on my computer and it said record videos, and I always thought it'd be super complex. And the design of it is crazy cool, and it's a shiny thing for me.
Really, Stephen? Just like, I mean, it's like, so right, the mystery, the crazy is that it's like, hey, record, and you're like, okay, and then it just like works.
Yeah,
That's crazy, right?
that's just nuts.
That's crazy. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. You know, back in the early days, honestly, I'm going to go back about 15 years, which is when I started using a MacBook. I think that Apple's lost a lot of ground since Jobs died. I know that's a little cliche to say it, but that's my observation. But back in the day, back in the days when it seemed like when I would like get a new Windows machine, then I would lose like 2 full work days trying to just get everything that was running over there to now run over here and trying to find the box with the code on it so I could reinstall or, you know what I mean? It seemed like it was this crazy nightmare. And then the first time I upgraded, again, this is in the early digits, you know, '05. And the first time I did that with the, you know, from one MacBook to another one, and I literally just like backed up the one and then took the other guy and like plugged it into the backup, and my system was just running. You know what I mean? I mean, at a time when again, I'm not trying to say today in 2021 what's better. I'm not making that argument, but I am saying that in '05 the difference was stark from what it was like for a long stretch doing that with, you know what I mean, upgrading my Windows machine. And the first time I did that MacBook, it just simply just like worked like you would expect it to work without a bunch of weirdness, you know? It's staggering, right? When it just simply does the thing it's supposed to do. Why should that be so hard? And you know why? The truly the reason why is use case design. I'm going for the hard segue, but seriously, truly, um, it's about it's about use case design. It's understanding what a user actually truly expects. Because if you have a device or a thing, like I still probably have it somewhere. I had a man, what was it? What was it? Who made it? It was a Clie. It was a Palm OS device, but it had a lot of amazing features. It was kind of ahead of its time, but it also had the ability to put like you could put a Wi-Fi card, a little, you know, little, I don't even remember what it was, a little SD card or some kind of a card that you could put a Wi-Fi thing in it, you know. And what's amazing to me, really, as I look back on that, I was like running the mobile computing lab at BYU. I was, you know, I had expertise in wireless data communications, low-level software, you know, hardware, you know, doctorate. I wasn't the, you know, less educated, less knowledgeable, you know, user. I was somebody that actually knew a lot of stuff, and I fiddled around. I probably in the end spent maybe 2 or 3 aggregate hours trying to get this SD card Wi-Fi little, you know, adapter to actually work, and never could like get it to work, you know. And granted, maybe 10 more hours would have done the trick, but right. But what do you do if you're just, you know, you're just a teller at a bank, or you're just, whatever. You're stocking shelves at the grocery store, and you just happen to have this device, and you want to jump on the Wi-Fi when you get home. You know, uh, what do you do if you're just that person? You know, like what's the use case? And again, it is back to the curse of knowledge, because obviously for the engineers, the engineers knew what you had to do, but nobody else had the incantation. Nobody else had the secret incantation. I couldn't figure it out, you know. So that's the whole idea, is getting outside yourself to understand, what if you're somebody who doesn't know anything, right? Rick had to buy a new case. Interesting. Now you're actually, Rick, yeah, you're doing kind of like internal system upgrade stuff, right? On kind of like a desktop, Windows kind of desktop, right? Which I've never really played around at that level. I've always found it too annoying and too irritating and too frustrating. You know what I mean? I mean, I was back in those days when I spent a lot of years of my career with an open box, with all the internal stuff, and, you know, doing stuff, trying to debug, uh, add-on cards to early PCs, Yeah, so really, Devin said not bad anymore. It's like Legos. Yeah, but yeah, for me, honestly, I was doing it back in the day when it was just like the flaming pains of hell to do all of it. And I could do all of it, but it was just so freaking cumbersome to get there. But, yeah, I mean, in 2021, increasingly, it ought to just be a little more kind of, plug and play, man. But anyway, yeah. Okay.
But one thing I wanted to say, I don't know
Yeah,
if
Sam.
that counts as a shiny object, but one thing that has kind of affected the way I look at both design and like computer science and just managing things in general, like even things like government policy and politics and stuff,
Right.
is a couple of years ago I had the opportunity to work at a manufacturing plant here in Utah. They actually made synthetic diamonds. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it,
Oh, I think
but
what was the company called?
U.S. Synthetic.
Okay, I think I knew about
I
it.
think they changed to like Apergy or something.
Okay.
But yeah, and so they went a little bit harder on it than I really liked. But in manufacturing and they basically the equivalent to agile in computer science and software development is lean manufacturing
Okay.
in manufacturing, and there's and it's essentially the idea of efficiency, and it's a way of running an efficient factory and getting people to work as efficiently as possible. But essentially, the idea behind it is in the oversimplified way I remember it, is they visualize creating something in a way that is most efficient and most effective, which for them, for making a diamond, was just basically looking at the things and putting it in your hand and having it work. And I mean, that's obviously impossible, but you could do things that got you closer to it. And even if they were temporarily more inefficient, just by doing things in that way and trying to improve them, you would get further than just by stopping at a better but imperfect way or an ideal way of doing things.
Interesting. And I'll bet you could probably embody that as a pattern, right? Right. In some respects, right? I'll bet that there's a pattern that underlies you know, that you could just about document so that you could apply the kind of core principle, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think that'd be a good one for the assignment, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for the shares, you guys. Appreciate it. I just hope that you're, you know, as you're rolling around in the world, that you just begin to be aware of and see things where you can look at that and just go squeaking door, you know, and stop accepting it, you know, stop just being like, well, that's the way it is, you know, and instead start to just go, how would I fix that? How would I, you know, how would I change that? You know, why does it have to be just sitting there dumb, you know, with a sign, right, that just goes, stick your hand in the gunk and flush, you know? Why does that have to be the thing? Like, is it really that hard? You know, what would you do? Now, if you do this successfully, it will drive you and your loved ones just a little crazy. I think it's worth it. You know, but I want you to start looking around you at software, you know, at other systems, doesn't even matter, right? The way things are labeled, the way things are, you know, presented, the way things work, the way the flow works, you know, all of those things influence how we design software, how we document our software, how we do diagrams for our software, how we communicate about our software to others. All of it. It's really, in my view, and I know that some of you are probably in this like, yeah, Dr. K, he just shows us like pictures of elevator buttons. You know, like if that's your perspective, you know, perception of what's going on here, you really, really miss the point. It really all is it's a skill set that once you acquire it, it applies to all those different areas, including the creation and the design of software, so that you write software that just like, you know, when somebody else looks at it, its function and its purpose and its design and layout and everything just witnesses to you, and you suddenly just know by at a glance what it is. You don't wake up with that. You don't just like accidentally fall into that one day. That is a deliberate skill, and otherwise it winds up looking like some weird whatever. And then unless somebody has the crazy mental model inside your head, you know, if they don't have that mental model, it's going to be just painful as hell to try to maintain this code that you inherited, right? And I've seen both. I've seen both. The code that you pick up that you have to maintain that is just unspeakable. I remember once at Novell back in the day, I inherited code, and in this code there was a, wait for it, a 1,000, this is C, by the way, there was a 1,000 line switch statement that implemented a state machine, a distributed state machine across the network with a client device. Horrible, horrible, horrible. The number one thing I would have done if I knew more if I knew, you know, then what I know now is I would have simply dove in and refactored the entire thing just to make sense out of it, you know, and then to clarify the function so it looked and acted like the pattern it was actually implementing, which was a state machine. You couldn't even tell. It was crazy. And there was no additional external documentation, no UML diagrams, you know, or anything like that. So yeah, Sam, sounds like your VM homework. That's nice. Yeah, Braden, polio was a hell of a squeaking door. Yep, yep, nice, nice. Because you know, and this is also, it brings up this topic of technical debt. It's not really a core topic of the course. I don't know if you deal with technical debt anywhere else though. But the idea behind technical debt is that you got to get something out, so you slop it together. You get it working, right? But understand that the majority of the maintenance of the cost of software is maintenance. Okay, that should make some intuitive sense, doesn't it? That the biggest cost of software is maintenance, not creation. Which is why farming your code out to outsource it, if the folks building that software are not fantastic and you outsource it, you just acquired a tremendous amount of technical debt because nobody in-house has a mental model of the software that you had built for you. Does that make sense? And the mental model is the number one deliverable. The mental model in the brain of the developer. If the developer stays with your company, you reduce the technical debt because when you need to make tweaks, this developer knows kind of where things are and what have you. But if you get crappy code, and I'm not saying that outsourced code equals crappy code. I'm not saying that. I qualified it by saying if you outsource to a real low cost provider and it works, but it's really ugly, it's butt ugly and difficult to maintain, you have just acquired a potentially crippling amount of technical debt. Okay. And technical debt means that I got the thing working, but when I go to make changes, fix bugs, upgrade, add features, what have you, then I'm running huge risk and very high cost because it's so hard maybe to understand the software. If I spend more time now to make software that shines, is shiny and cool and right, and as I like to say, that you look at it and it witnesses to you of its functionality. When you spend the time to make software like that, and then it's time to change stuff, it takes you less time to do the change because it's less time to comprehend the software that has been written, right? That's either because of documentation, external or internal, and the self-documenting nature of code when you do it right, okay? So, and then the likelihood that you introduce a bug while fixing a bug is also way down. You see what I mean? That's why it's technical debt. You're paying like on all this interest that's just flushed down the toilet, right? When you have debt, you pay interest, and the interest is just a loss to you. If you kind of can pay the thing off, you don't pay interest. Building software well versus building it crappy but cheap, well but expensive. In this well but expensive, it's like you pay all the principal off up front. Then when it's time to make maintenance changes, it just naturally falls out. You see it, it's clean, you know that it's right, it's faster, and it's higher quality. And this one that you got for cheap, now you have to go maintain it. You're doing a bunch of refactoring because nobody can understand it. You're struggling with taking a lot of time to understand how it works. And then there's a lot of dependencies everywhere. So when you do understand how it works and you miss a dependency, you introduce a side effect, and that side effect is called a bug. So that's that difference between in a sense, the principle is it is less expensive in the long haul to build a product well with as little technical debt as possible. That is less expensive than building a product for cheap, okay, and incurring a bunch of technical debt. Sometimes you have no choice, the product's got to go out, but that can really be a devil's bargain. That can really, really be a devil's bargain sometimes because you push the maintenance to the mythical future and then it cripples you later. There are many companies that have died. Many Bothans died to bring you this information. There are many companies that died because of technical debt, because they waited too long, and then there was like a foreclosure. Anyway, true stories. D-Base is a good example, and the company was called Ashton Tate, and they had 75% of the market in the 90s. 75% of the worldwide database market, and they ceased to exist as a company because of technical debt. WordPerfect. Again, I think I shared that story in a different class. In 305G, I think I shared a story about WordPerfect. But it was a similar thing. A massive code base in C, and the world is shifting away from it, and you're not adapting with it in time because you don't want to make that, you don't want to pay that right now, and you just keep kicking it down the road, kind of like a budget deficit, which eventually, I don't know how we get out of that, right? Separate issue. That's politics. And I promise today, no politics, no coronavirus, just a bumblebee's butt. So I want to stick back. I'm gonna pull back from that and go back to bumblebee's butts. Okay. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. I do think technical debt maybe ought to be an official topic here. Can you guys tell me, and I don't know if you're far enough in the program to know whether technical debt shows up as a topic in any of the other classes that you guys take?
I would say software engineering 1.
Okay.
We talk about it a decent amount.
Okay.
We
Good.
talk about how much time is spent on maintenance, and that class, like I've noticed a lot of people dislike, and it's unpleasant while you're in it. But it's very good because I don't know. I honestly think it was one of the more valuable classes I've had in my undergrad. Just because a lot of them are coding classes, and you can teach yourself to do that, even though you often learn bad tricks and habits.
That's right.
But that you can't really self-teach what it's like to be on a team and having deadlines and expectations and reading other people's code and just trying to deal with all of that stuff, and then go back and maintain your own stuff to develop it.
Yeah. Well,
And I feel like it did a pretty good job. I had it from JP, by the way.
Okay.
In case that's relevant.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sam. You know, one of the interesting things about reading code, I think that there ought to be, maybe I guess you might get this in the software engineering class. I hope so. We have a weird relationship with reading code. In the industry, if you're reading code that you didn't write, that's called going to work. You know what I mean? It's called you showed up at work. You spend a lot of time reading code that you didn't write. You know, it is a very big activity, right? Because all of maintenance, for the almost all of it, almost a great deal, but maybe almost most of maintenance is reading code you didn't write. In college, if you're reading code in a context of college, right? University, and you're reading code you didn't write, we call that plagiarism, and we're going to flunk your butt all the way out of here. You know what I mean? And granted, you know, I'm not making excuses for pilfering someone else's code and passing it off as your own. That's plagiarism, no matter where you are. Okay, including industry. I'm just saying there needs to be more exercises in the undergraduate setting of reading code, you know, that you didn't write and then having to like maintain it. So I've done, for example, when I was teaching at BYU and in one of my software engineering classes, I would do a thing where every team, we had different teams, and you would build like module 1, you would build, and then you actually had to hand off your code from like module 1 to a different group. So the group, and then the group got to grade your code. You know, I got to rip you. Of course, they also were getting ripped by the next team. And then the task was to alter that code and to maintain it, to change it, fix a bug or add a feature or what have you. You know, where deliberately there was a handing off of code that you didn't build. It's brutal, right? I mean, that can be a brutal thing, but it's truly important, you know. So, okay. Hey, I think we were in the middle of the slides on use cases, as I recall. And I think, let me throw this up here and see if this is looking familiar. Remember, when did I start taking the Mondo cognitive impairment drug? It was Tuesday, Wednesday. So I was probably still, when we had class last Wednesday, I wasn't quite descended into cognitive hell. So I was reasonably functional, but I still don't remember where we were on these slides. Do you remember? I think we did I think we went back to here. We were talked about use cases, right? Let me see. Yeah, so by the way, Mitch just said this is more for the recording, but I've never heard of it in class, meaning technical debt. But I have had to deal with my own code that had a technical debt due to my own decisions. Can't imagine how annoying it is to trying to work through someone else's sloppy code day after day. Oh man, boy howdy. Okay, so here comes use case, and we kind of talked about the problem with this use case, talking about example use cases, is we don't have the context for the system. You know, how much energy do we put into trying to understand this arbitrary system that we're talking about in order to see sort of how it fits? But what this does kind of show you, and by the way, can I just say one other thing? I hope this like carves its way into your heads so you really remember that I keep saying this. I really, especially when it comes to use cases, I truly don't care much about the UML officialness, you know, like includes and generalization, specialization with the includes. Uh, that's not the same thing, but I mean includes and then generalization, specialization, cool little object-oriented, declaration tricks. I don't really care. What I care most about is articulating and understanding who the actors are, which I think that's actually where we went. That we name the use and that we identify the actors. Okay. And I think we talked about this slide. And then this kind of gets you to this idea of the actor. There are the actors. Now notice that trading manager is a person, trader is a person, salesperson is a person. An accounting system is not a person. Okay. It's some other software system. And the bottom line, these are really like roles, you know, and some people, there's just different ways and preferences of doing use cases. And again, to me, the UML use case diagram approach can sometimes be clunky and almost get in the way. And in fact, what we'll get to later. Let me look real quick, kind of where it is. But later on, where is it? We'll get to the idea that you can actually, for use cases, no, maybe I don't have maybe I don't have an explicit slide. Maybe, yeah, I mean, it can literally be like this. It can just be pure text, It's not like you have to have, in my mind, pictures like the UML stuff, that all makes sense to the extent that it helps you. And as soon as it stops helping you and it starts hurting you, then you're doing it wrong. And because the goal is not to draw a UML diagram. The goal is to articulate and communicate in a way that makes sense to another developer, or some other stakeholder in the entire thing, like what's going on. And whatever you can do to communicate that is just fine by me, as far as I'm concerned. So what I really want to do, I want to talk about these and I'm just going to hit kind of the highlights, but there's actually an in-class activity I want to do. And what I need to do, actually, let me see. Devin took off, right? I'm going to do a thing real quick. Let me see. We got 13. Hold tight. I'm going to make, I need to make a handful of voice channels. Okay, so just hold on a second. Okay, that's working. All right. I think we probably only need like maybe 4. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let me see. Hang on a second. I'm just trying to move these. Can you guys see the voice channels that I just built on the interface? Let me see. Hang on a second.
Yeah, I
Group
can.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, that's it. Yep. So what we're going to do here in about 15 minutes, what I want you to do is let me see, I got 3, 6, 9, we got 12. What I want you to do is like 3 of you, at a shot. What I'm going to have you do is just each of 3 of you pile out to each group. And I'll tell you what I want you to do for the assignment. It's basically going to be like a use case, sort of, in class thing. It's not going to be super crazy rocket science or extra difficult. Okay, I'll explain that in about 10 minutes. Really, it can be like a 15-minute, exercise. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of, for the next 10 minutes, I want to just go through and talk a little bit more about use cases. But yeah, I just want you to know that I've got this weird love-hate relationship with use cases. The fundamental takeaway of use cases, I think, is the most critical thing. The representation of use cases, to me, is just all over the map. And I don't really care as long as it is effective. Okay. So, by the way, I'm going to just do, let me see. Okay. All right. Okay. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to throw UML under the bus here. I'm just trying to say that to me, UML use cases often feel like the developer is serving UML instead of UML serving the developer. Does that make sense? Where you're making a complex thing because you're trying to follow the rules, but use cases are just one of those things where anything you can do. And for example, one of the things that I really value is when you look at actors and you articulate personas. Like, for example, you take trader and you say, well, what are the different kinds? Maybe there are different kinds of traders. They interact with the system differently, right? We talked a little bit about this with, like, the Amazon shopper, you know what I mean? Or the shopping cart shopper, some who leave it there for a long time and aggregate, others who do one-click purchasing, so it never really hangs out in there. These are going to stress the system in different ways. They're going to articulate different behaviors on the part of the system. Okay, so let me just hit a few things that I want you to kind of take away. I think we've already said that people are actors, but really we're talking about roles, that there are systems like accounting system, which can be actors. There are even, they'll have time actors where there's like a time-based trigger for certain things. Maybe, for example, there's a time-based trigger for, Black Friday shopping at a certain time of, then the things change in some way. And other actors. This is a very common starting place for analysis, right? And it turns out that there are use cases that don't show up from thinking about the user. Okay. For example, when there are external events that trigger behavior, like the weather condition drops below certain, a timer goes off or drops below freezing or something like that. Here's include, which again, I don't want to bog down on include, but it basically allows you to define a use case that's part of other use cases. That's the bottom line. One or more use cases has a dependency on another use cases, so you don't have to keep duplicating all of that behavior. Fair. Generalization, when one is a special case of another one, I find this a little more clunky, frankly, but honestly, I got to admit that I find generalization and specialization, aka inheritance, in object-oriented programming to be a little bit funky, if I'm very honest. Never really felt like that was, I don't know. And interestingly, there have been some articles written since then that have basically badmouthed generalization and specialization in object-oriented design as being a little bit oversold in terms of benefit. So, but the idea is you have a variation on some normal behavior. That's it. Then you get extension. Again, these are just ways of trying to make the diagram be more powerful, but some of it, again, if you're really knocking yourself out on use cases, this can become an important thing. Then here's just an example of some passenger, and then you see the specialization, like the tour guide's a passenger, the minor passenger is a passenger, the special needs passenger is a passenger, So there's a kind of a generic passenger that is kind of common case, and then there are, specializations outside of that. And then just different use cases like group check-in, individual check-in, et cetera, et cetera. We don't really need to break this down. What else? Narrative text. That's what I was talking about earlier. Oops, let me back up. Really anything, photographs, personas. I talked about personas. I find personas really valuable because you can actually stop for a minute and just say, okay, here's a persona. This is Ned. Ned is a day trader. Ned is a, whatever, a server at a restaurant, whatever. Photographs of whiteboards, very common, okay? Another thing you can kind of try to do is think about flow of events, preconditions and postconditions, right? What the beginning state that puts you in a position where the use case can happen, and the postcondition being when you're done, what's the new what's the new state of the system? Primary path of kind of like flow through the system, alternate paths, exception paths based on conditions. The problem, of course, becomes that there are a lot of paths through code. There are a lot of paths through code of any magnitude, sometimes literally infinite. So you just can't nail it all down. Anyway, you can get the use. Where do you get the use cases from? Well, from business process, models, requirements docs. You look at project documentation, just looking for keywords, nouns and verbs. From the stakeholders, from the organization, from models of the organization. And what I want to, let me see, how much further do we have here? I'm going to pause here and I want to come back to finish these slides on Wednesday, okay? Because what I want to do is, before we get, this deep in, I'm going to go to the in-class exercise. Here's what I'm going to have you do. And this is going to be, I'm going to pull this thing live here real quick. We got small project 4 was the last small project. And I'm reworking this a little bit, but I'm going to go for, this is going to be small project 5. And yeah, okay. And then I'm gonna light this thing up. It's gonna go live on Canvas here in just a second. Just doing a quick touch. Okay, okay. Small projects. Okay. All right, I am saving and publishing. So if you look on Canvas, and I'll throw this over on the screen as well, and we'll blow it up. So here's what you're gonna do. This one is about use cases in the wild, okay? And what you're gonna do is get in a group. So when I say go, then you're gonna jump over to, it doesn't really matter, but just 3. I think right now we're still at 12 bodies, so perfect. 3 people in each group, okay? And if you jump over and it's too many, look and see how many are in each group and bounce around until you settle out, okay? You're gonna get in a group of 2 or 3 people, so it'll be 3 in this case. And I do want you to just on the voice chat, take a second and introduce yourselves, okay? And in fact, if you have a LinkedIn profile, would you consider adding each other as linked on LinkedIn? Make the acquaintance and make that connection on LinkedIn. It's a good way to begin to network and to build a relationship. Here's what you do. This is the key thing. You're going to jump online and look for actual use case diagrams or documents, real ones. And this is the key. They cannot be educational mock-ups. They can't be like those diagrams from Fowler. Okay? They have to be real. So my big recommendation would be you got to go to, if they're going to be real, you got to go where there's real projects that you can get access to. So think open source. Go to GitHub. Go to Apache, right? Go to GNU project. Go to SourceForge. Go to, any other place where there's open source software that you can look at. And then what you submit in this homework when we're done is the name of your partners and just a picture or any other note or byproducts of the activity. Okay. Now, would it help if I created 4 text? I'm going to create 4 text channels as well, so you can be like dropping links and communicating with each other without confusion. Okay. I'm going to go make 4 text channels as well. Okay. Are there any questions about the assignment, about what we're doing? That makes sense? Okay. Your silence is consent. So, all right, ready, go. And then what I'd like you to do is, we're done with class at 3:45, which is about 20 minutes from now. So just spend your time on that. If you go over just a little bit, that's just great. If you need a little more time, you can divide and conquer, but I want you to be talking to each other as you do it. Okay. Communicate and jump on, and I'll go make 4 general or 4 text channels. All right. Go. You may jump to a group.
Is it 1 submission per group?
It is. What do you think? I'm okay with 1 submission per group. It's probably fewer points of failure.
I feel like if we all submitted, you'd just be getting a ton of duplicates to sift through.
It's true. Yeah, I'm cool if you just designate somebody who identifies you and does a submission, and then as we do these, we'll look at everybody. You know what I mean? And the only problem is, no, it's okay because the others that didn't submit anything, we can still go over and just put scores there. We can fill scores in even if there wasn't a submission. So
Well, should we just like submit a text thing that says I was in this group?
yeah,
then
well,
you
yeah,
just
let's do
throw a
that. That would
score
be
on?
easier. That would be easier. I was in the group with these guys, whatever. And then as long as one of you submits your stuff as like the official submission, that's great.
Sounds-
Cool. And I'm just going to hang out. I'll hang out on the general chat. I might pop into the group chats just to see what's going on, but I'll hang in on the general chat, till we're done. So if you have any questions, you can still grab me. Cool. All right. Make it
Sounds
so.
good. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Where's
So
the,
I think the channels you have under the group 1, 2, 3, 4
yeah?
are text channels that are
They
categorized
didn't
under
look
the
right.
voice
You're
channel.
right.
I
They did
think
not
they're
look
chat.
right.
I don't think they're voice.
Crap. Okay, hold tight. Pilot error. Let me see. Do I make another one? Let me see. Voice channels. Create channel. Text. Oh, I'm so dumb. Okay. Okay, hang tight. You're right. I am going again. There's group 1. Yeah. Yeah, totally me. Totally me. I was haste makes waste. You should have 2 voice channels now. Here comes 3. Okay, they should all be there now, and I'm going to get rid of those other ones. Oh, actually, I can just leave those there for the tech. No, I have. Yeah, I'll just leave I'll get rid of these. Okay, Eric, you got to make your move, buddy.